Hey, before we start our podcast, I just want to give a shout out to Homegrown KIO 107.9 FM, hosted by the amazing David Leake and L.A. Fredrickson, every Sunday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m.
WKIO, Arcola, Champaign-Urbana, 107.9 FM. And anywhere you drive in the U.S., easily listen to WKIO through your car's Bluetooth.
Hello, welcome to CU Bands and Fans podcast where musicians tell their story, and we're very excited to have our guest, Ben Jenkins, with us. Ben is originally from Danville, Illinois, has moved away, lived in Chicago and LA, and is back in Danville. And currently, I think he's got some things going on with getting back into playing in the music scene here in Champaign-Urbana. Ben, we're glad to have you back into our music community again. Originally, you were from Danville, so when did you move away?
When I was a kid, really. I was born here, and we moved to Chicago when I was like 2. And then we lived up there until I was 4. Then we moved to LA, and I went to kindergarten and first grade in LA. And then we moved back to Chicago. And then I went through all of up to basically my whole 8th grade year, from 2nd grade all the way up to then. And then I moved back to Westville, actually. My family did, when I was like about 15-ish or something. But I asked my dad. I didn't really care for it too well. When you're a kid going into high school and you don't have friends, I wanted to go back up to Chicago. So he let me move back up to Chicago for about half a year, and then I thought I better go back to my dad's place. So I came back to Westville and went there.
Yeah. So how did you get into music?
It's a long family history. I mean, I've actually traced it back to the 1100 ADs in Wales, in England, where I've had some composer family members. And I actually, one of my younger brothers, Tim, that's a drummer, he ran across a postcard that had the Jenkins band. That was an old picture that was colorized from the turn of the century from Ellsworth Park in Danville. And then after that, there was some cousins. I guess they're my second cousins. They're my dad's cousins. My dad played in a band with them, and he basically played the jug. They did bluegrass jug music. And then after, of course, my mom was a piano player and a guitar player. And then my older brother, Alex, which you probably seen him, Alex Jenkins and the Bombers around. He was a big influence on me with guitar. And then my older brother, Don, is a drummer. So that's where it all came from.
So it's just everywhere, all over your family.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, I'm sneaking in my older brother's albums and all that stuff. And just the music was always there. My mom was always listening to music, or, like I said, I'd go in his bedroom and play his music. And it just influenced me.
That's really cool. That you obviously you played this vinyl.
Right. Right. Actually scratching it up a little bit. Yeah, don't touch my records. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember one time I thought I was doing him something really nice, and I'm a kid at the time, probably 9 years old or something, and he was traveling back and forth to LA and Chicago, and I thought I'm gonna do something really nice for him. So I found one of his Gibson acoustic guitars. I don't remember what model, but I found some green house paint and I painted the guitar all green. Oh my God. Yeah, he was livid about that when he got back. But he didn't. As far as I remember, I really didn't get a rear end chewing too much. And back then, you could buy a lot of guitars for a lot cheaper than they are today. But I wanted to be part of the music.
I need to know that. Did you brush paint this? Spray paint that? How'd you do?
Yes. Brush painted it. No, it wasn't a spray on paint, a spray job. No, it was brushed with little brush stickers in it and everything.
Where's that guitar now? Is it gone? Is it? Is that guitar still around?
No, no, no. Those are long gone. Wayne and I, that's Alex, both have a long history of dealing in guitars and trading, and just getting them back and forth. The only guitar I have, one guitar that I still own that I picked up when I was 16 years old, and I had moved, like I said, I moved back to Westville, and there was a furniture store in Westville called Rick's Used Furniture. So I'd been in the first year of, I guess, freshman partway, and I was walking downtown, and I looked in the window, and I seen this guitar in a case in the furniture store. So I went in there, and he only wanted, like, I think about $8 for it. So I think I must have got the money from my dad or selling pop bottles or something. But I got the guitar, and it's hanging up in the other part of the studio. But I got that and started messing with it. I couldn't really get it, though, at the time. But I played it for a while, and then I had it for maybe 20 years. And for some reason, this guy wanted to buy it, and I sold it to him. I wish I hadn't at the time, but then I was playing in this club in Belgium called the Back Door after I think it was after I moved back from Nashville the first time. And the guy happened to come in. I hadn't seen him for years. And he goes, man, yeah, I still got that guitar. I think it's under the bed. I said, oh, wow, I'd really like to see it. And he goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give that. If you play the song Cocaine for me, every time I come in, I'm going to bring that back and give it to you. So he brought it back and gave it to me. I've had it ever since. So,
how many times have you had to play that song?
I don't remember. Probably too many times.
So, and you have that in your studio now?
Yeah, I have it in my studio now. It's hanging up. I actually used it on a couple recordings, and I played it. I think I might have played it at the Blues Fest in Chicago one year, and then I played it at a festival we had for Alex called Alex Fest in Danville. And I usually set it up for slide. It's an old, like, silver tone that's really cool. But maybe in a few minutes, if you want, we can do a quick little
tour. Let's do that. Yeah.
I'll show it to you.
Yeah. Let's do that before we end this. I think I'd like to see it. I think the viewers would like to see it. And that being said, also, I should mention that unfortunately Zach couldn't be with us tonight. He had other commitments, and he's had a busy weekend. It's been an incredible weekend that you were a part of, the Blues Fest. You mentioned you got to get up and play with Painkillers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did talk to Zach, and he let me know he couldn't make, and I was, of course, tormenting him, say, sure, you just didn't want any part of me. You didn't want to hear my voice.
I didn't think it's all that.
But he looked dragged out then. Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, he was pretty exhausted. And then he also made it to the Appaloosa reunion yesterday.
Oh, wow.
The entire time. And I just made sure he had plenty of water. I wanted to know if he wanted anything to drink, and so he didn't have to, like, get up and move around a whole lot, because he's just tired. So, and I don't know what he's doing tonight, like if he's got a meeting or what's happening, but he's had a full weekend. But they do a great Blues Fest, and so that if anybody was able to go, that Blues Fest was just fantastic. All the music, everything. Oh my God, that Rico McFarland at the end.
He was on Saturday, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, I couldn't make Friday. I couldn't make the Saturday, but
yeah, it was.
But he was good.
Yeah, he Oh my God. Apparently he's originally from here. And so when he came back, like, of course, you know, there was some family and stuff that came to see him, and then and all of it. I started to video him when he began to play this song. His whole band was just fantastic. I can't say enough about it. But and I feel that way about Susan Williams too, her band.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's so intense. I forget how good she is. I know she's great, but I forget because I haven't seen her in a long time. So when I walked up and heard her, I was like, oh my God, I forgot how much I love her.
Yeah.
Just, oh damn. But
Now
anyway,
I played with Susan back in I don't know how many years ago, but I played with her for a while. And she's just a great person too. Then she didn't even have any originals written or anything at all. And I had some originals, but I don't know why we didn't try to, you know, give them to her to have her sing. I don't know what happened, but it was a pretty busy time back then. But man, I'll tell you what, when she did her first CD with a lot of her songs, and she recorded it down at 309 with Rick Sadowski.
yeah,
And it's really impressive, really good writing, the quality of the recording. I really enjoy it. So
yeah.
she's been really getting some good gigs too, traveling.
Yeah, she is. She's, you know, she got married. She moved, she got married, and then she's just you just see her gigging like everywhere in Chicago and so on and so forth. So it was great. It was great that we got her here back home. And then that Rico, that guy, when he started playing, that he just started like playing, and his whole band was just like they were so intense. And so I got up there with my video, and then I seen him kind of go into this thing, and I was like, oh, he's gonna get, you know, this is gonna get real right here. So I just moved just like fixed on him. And I mean, I was jaw dropped. I just couldn't believe it. But
Wow.
so that brings me to blues, which is what you play. Is that right?
Well, I do play blues, but I play a little bit of everything. I went through different. I guess it's because I grew up on radio. A lot of us in my age group, you know, we grew up on, you know, everybody mentions WLS, I guess, and WCFL. Until I got older, then I was listening to what's the rock station in Chicago? I can't remember, but they were playing more deep cuts. But yeah, I love blues, and blues has always been a part of me in all my music. Even when I did back in the late '70s, we had kind of a power pop band, and we did it. You know, it could have some blues bass, but the last few years, since probably 87-ish, started getting really more into blues. And I started writing more blues and sending my music out to a lot of the labels. And that's when I developed a good rapport with Bruce Aguilar from Alligator Records. So I've been dealing with him. He's got a couple of my songs on hold now, and he wants me to give him some ideas of who to pitch them to, but I haven't really thought about it for a while. But so since then, I started gradually getting more and more into blues, and once again, it was influenced off of from my brother Wayne Alex, and we did a thing about that period when I had moved to St. Louis, and I was living there for I think 4 years. And we were playing there as just a two-piece blues duo in like Soulard at 1860 Saloon and Mike and Man's and Broadway Oyster Bar and some of these bars. And it just kind of just snowballed from there. And we did a CD with a band, Benny Jenkins Bloodline, which had one of my other older brothers, Don, was a drummer. And then my son, Dylan, played rhythm guitar and slide. And then Todd Gallagher played stand-up bass. It was all originals. We did jump blues and a few rockabilly flavored. But yeah, I really love blues. That was long answer, I think.
It was a good answer. It was really did and you write, are you the one that writes?
Yeah, I write. Once I got some more song. I just wrote 2 songs yesterday after I came back from the festival. I just got juiced up or something. I came in the studio, the lyrics started coming. I went, whoa, and I just couldn't stop. But I have over 100 songs licensed with BMI. I've been a broadcast music writer since the 80s too. So I got, like I said, over 100 songs written. A couple local, like Alex recorded one of my songs with their band, the Bombers, and I had another band, the Baghdaddies, or someone from Nashville record one. But I haven't locked into someone, you know.
Yeah. So wait, what is that like to write and somebody else picks it up and records it? I mean, what's that?
You know, it's even though it was my family, one of them wasn't. I would still like to know the feeling of somebody else completely distant for me to really get that feeling. But it's still a good feeling to have someone else record your song, even if it was people I knew. But yeah, it's a great feeling, and I wish it happened more often.
How many songs have you recorded?
Oh my God! I thought you might ask that. I was going to write that down. Let me just take.
Where can we listen?
40. I think I've probably got at least 65 songs that's been recorded. You can listen on Pandora, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, all the typical outlets. But a couple of the different bands might have not crossed over to Pandora, and I can't remember which ones didn't.
So what would these be if I went to, like, let's say Spotify and I searched Ben Jenkins? Am I going to find that or no?
Yeah, if you put Flathead 6 was a band that I started recording with in Nashville. There's an album on there of Flathead 6, and then Benny Jenkins' Bloodline, and then Alex and I done an EP, 5-song EP. We had won went to the Windy City Blues Challenge in Chicago and played the International Blues Challenge up there, and we actually won. So they paid for our trip to go to Memphis on Beale Street and compete. And Prairie Crossroads Blues Society in Champaign has been great, as well as Windy City Blues Society. But Prairie Crossroads are the ones that jumped in, and they did a fundraiser for us at Pippa's and got us some more money. And then there was a fundraiser here at the Knights of Columbus. So we had a 10-day trip completely paid for. We competed down there. We came in you compete with all over the world, and you make a lot of connections. So, I mean, they're coming from Japan, Israel, Canada, Australia. There was some, I don't know, some just all over the place. Middle East bands, just all over, and it's really tough, but it's fun. It's networking. I don't look at it. It'd be great to win down there, because then you could win just some prizes and stuff, your recording packages, and then you get put on like King Biscuit Blues Festival as a featured artist. And that's all great too, but I really cherish the networking, and that's really valuable to me anywhere, like in Danville here, Champaign community of people. I'm still networking with people, friends there, Nashville, Chicago. I still keep in touch with a lot of people doing that, and I lost where we went from the question.
Oh, that's okay. Because networking is important, and it's relationships that you're building, across the US, across the world or whatever. And that's, and to have that support and to support others. is the same way, but like Prairie Crossroads Blues Society, that's awesome that they did that for you.
Yeah, they because we didn't even win. I'm a member there, and I'm a member of Windy City in Chicago also, and then I'm a member of the Blues Foundation in Memphis. But you know, we challenged before with Prairie Crossroads. They merged in with Decatur, which is now defunct. But yeah, Bob and Zach and all the crew down there, they're great people. I guess I cycle back around again. You ask about where you can hear the music, and that Jenkins Brothers Electrified Blues Duo is the EP we had done. We just did a limited edition, like 100 of them, and we sold most of them in Memphis when we were there, but we've got a few, and then we sent a few out to some radio stations. But then also there is, let's see, Flathead 6, Benny Jenkins Bloodline. There might be some Jenkins Brothers out there, and then Jenkins Brothers Electrified Blues Duo. So there's a lot of recordings that way. And then I have a ton of stuff that's not even been released. It's in the can still that I've done at different studios.
Where did you record?
Well, the first session I'd ever done was actually I bought a 4-track TX recorder, reel to reel, and then a little Porta Studio it was called. And I was kind of messing around with them, but I wanted the big full, you know, I wanted more experience at that time to record us. So I had a band called Late Movies at the time, and that was in 1978. It kind of morphed out of a band called Ishtar, which started with you know Doug Gurna?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Doug worked with Bonnie Raitt and all these people.
Yes.
Great guy. We've known each other forever, but it started out with he was the lead singer. I played bass. A guy named Doug Montgomery was on a guitar, and then a guy Dave Duke on drums. So Ishtar played around, and then as bands go, the drummer Dave, he worked at a hospital, and his hours was getting really screwed up. It was messing with rehearsal and gigs, and then it kind of fizzled. And then I tried to talk with Doug about maybe coming in, because he's a drummer too, see if he wanted to sing and play drums, and then with Doug and myself. And he had, in the meantime, got on at General Motors, which is really tough. So he at the time, he didn't want to do anything then. But so it was a couple months went by, and Doug and I wanted to do something. So we were looking around for a drummer, and then it turned out Dave got switched on his shift. So he joined us, and we came to Late Movies. And that was mainly all originals, except for we did choice songs from like Alice Cooper, Off Broadway, The Shoes, power pop bands, Cheap Trick and stuff like that. And we did we were doing shows at Mabel's, and we opened for the Boys over there and the Rave a couple different times, and we played on our own a few times there. We used to play Chico's over in Champaign and Bradley's, and some of the different did a really nice festival at Crystal Lake, I remember, with Slink Rand, and I think the Ray was there, and some other bands. But anyway, we recorded. We said we got to get in the studio, so we went to Creative Audio, which was in Champaign, 24-track studio, and Michael Day, which is from the band Champaign, keyboard player. He's since passed away, but he was with the band Champagne. He's the one that recorded our EP, and he liked us, and he was going to try to hook us up with their label at the time. And things started falling apart again because Doug Montgomery went to the U of I. He's an architect. He's actually an architect in Chicago now. So that was the first studio. And then when I was in St. Louis at the time and doing the thing with my brother, we were trying to put together a big band. So we got I knew a horn player in St. Louis that played with a band called Rondo's Blues Deluxe. It was just a killer blues band. And then he also did the Howlin' Wolf London sessions. And he came with us to do all the horn arrangements. And then we had a friend of ours, John Henry, a really good drummer. He's passed away since. I actually played bass and second guitar. Alex played guitar, and I played harp. That was at Willie Wells' studio that was above C.V. Lloyd's in Champaign, if you remember that. It was called WW Sound.
Yeah, I remember C.V. Lloyd's, but I didn't know about that studio.
Yeah, he was a really good guy, and we actually used. Let me see if I can remember his last name. Brian Leach. He was a singer for The Last Gentleman. So he came in and did a bunch of because he was a really good harmony singer. So he did a bunch of our harmonies. So that was one. This probably the second one, and then of course Pogo Studios with Mark Rubel.
Of course.
Yeah, he's great. That's the first time I ever ate a blue taco chip. Was at Mark Rubel's. I never. What the hell is this? It's blue. Is it mold? It's a blue taco chip.
I got to tell you something. I didn't realize back then they had blue tacos. I thought those were like, now. I didn't know they had them back then.
Yeah, I don't know where they came from. And then it was actually the first time, which I don't know if he did this on purpose to get me to stay longer or not, but he gave me chocolate covered coffee beans. And he was going, hey, you want to try some of these? I had a couple I was like buzzing. Come on, let's do another hour. Come on, one more hour. But yeah, Mark's great. I just watch his podcast. He's doing well in Nashville, it looks like.
He is. We had him on, on our podcast, and it was just, I was like, I don't know if we have enough time for this guy. I mean, once you begin with him, it's just like peeling this onion. It's just like, oh yeah, and then there was this, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this. And it was just like, I felt like we probably need to do a second podcast with him.
Oh yeah.
He gave some. It's fine. He gave some incredible advice. He was very, very inspiring, and it was awesome. And,
like some of the things goes over a lot of our heads. Even though I've done a lot of studio work, and I have a studio now, but Mark's like way up there, and it just flies over your head. But it's still, to a lot of us musicians, and probably yourself too, because you're into music, it's still just fascinating to hear all of that.
Yes.
And just to hear the process.
Yeah, and because I did ask him. He gave some really great answers on, because, and I'll ask you this too, because you were talking about radio stations and the different ways to get your music out there, and now it's basically online, and which to me, that doesn't seem as exciting. I don't know. It's like it's flatlined. If you put it online, everything, that's cool, that's all great and everything. I guess it just doesn't seem as exciting as when you used to just like send it to radio stations or whatever, and they'd play it, and it was like, oh my God, my song.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely true. I mean, all I ever wanted to do since second grade, because, let me fit this in before I forget, because I space out. When I was still in Chicago, the first band I ever played in was, and then I'll get back to this question, but I know I'll forget this. But the first band I played in was in fifth grade, and it was a garage band, and we were called the Young Americans, and I was just the lead singer. And then my friend Mario Meneghetti, that's still in Chicago, he played guitar, but he played the bass on the guitar. And then the other guitar player, his name was Chuck Brent, was the guitar player. And then Jay Materia was drummer. So that was the first band that I was ever in. And it got the juices flowing. And actually, I don't know if I put that in some of the material I sent you, but our a sidebar, fifth and sixth grade music teacher was Dennis DeYoung from Styx. So he was Dennis DeYoung, the original Styx, was my fifth and sixth grade music teacher. But
Are you serious?
yeah. And I used to have this thing. I know I'm going off again, but I had this thing. Not really. Jokes about it. but I remember, you're a dick, Dennis, because I wanted to play the saxophone, and he tells me, well, your mouth or something isn't quite right for the saxophone. We're going to put you on the clarinet. I went, I'm going to play the stupid clarinet. But now, as an adult, I realized that the clarinet is the same fingerings as a sax. So if I would have, kept doing it after a couple of years. But anyway, I joke about
That's
that.
what he was trying to do, was get you to,
Yeah, he just wanted to fill up the band is what he was trying to do. But anyway, so now I'm lost again. The question before
No, I was just talking about the excitement,
the music, yes. So the getting on right. But let me finish this real quick, and then I'll try to remember that. Keep that in thought in your mind. I remember we played 2 gigs, like maybe a little girl's birthday party, and then we'd also lift up the garage door with people. But we played our school talent show. That was pretty funny. And I remember we had not tie dye, but we dipped white pants in like the bottom from the knees down, like blue, and then left the middle white, and then did the top red. And so we were all red, white, and blue as the Young Americans. But for some reason, I think I had this flag, and I was going to wear it as a poncho, cut a hole in it. And my dad had said, "You're not cutting a hole in that American flag." All right. So I don't know why I found a British flag. Now, how crazy is that? So we're the Young Americans. So I got a British flag wearing it as a poncho. But I still try to connect with the girl that took the pictures. I can't ever find her. But you know what's hilarious? Not hilarious, but kind of cool. My buddy Mario, that I've known since second grade, that was the other guitar player. We've been friends ever since. He was just at my house here in Danville last month for a long weekend. And then the other guys I was wanting to try to connect with was the guitar player Chuck. I had his name backwards, and so Mario told me, and he said, no, his first name's Chuck and his last name's Brent. Oh, okay. So I looked him up on Facebook last week. Boom, that was him. He got back with me. He said, well, get a hold of Jay, which he goes by Joseph now. That's his real name. And he lives in Arizona, but they still play. Mario doesn't, but Chuck still plays in bands. And then Joseph plays in Arizona in bands. And he's actually an author. He's written a couple books and financial advice. But so getting back to the thing about the music, it's absolutely true. Like, that's what I wanted to get. I always wanted to make a record, since that's why I guess I went that far back. Since that time period, the goal was to make a record. And that's why it started, try to get into studios and everything and sending them off. And we did do, at first, instead of pressing the record, like in the old days, you want to get a label to support you, pick you up. So we would, I still have a box full of rejection letters, which I wear as a badge of honor. I actually had them in a frame at one time, from IRS records, Alligator Records, MCA, Geffen, I don't know, on and on, but you have to have tough skin. You can't let that bring you down, because so many people get rejected that when you hear about their stories that are like Elton John's and people like that. And so, but you're right. I always wanted to make the record, but then I came to a realization, because it passed the record phase. So the vinyl was out, and then they were doing cassettes.
Yes.
So I did a couple independent cassettes, but nothing major, self-released. And then the CDs came in. So I finally had a professional CD on my small label. And we had manufactured up in New Jersey. And that was great. And that was the first thing. But then all of a sudden it's going, that's great having a record and a CD. But really what's more important is to have people listen to it. Because
Yes.
you can have all the CDs in the world, but unless people listen to it. So, but we got a lot of radio airplay. We still get, for Flathead 6, it's still getting played around the world, a couple songs off that CD, because I get royalty statements every quarter, you know, not to make me rich or anything, but I get royalty statements for my songs being played on, you know, all the different formats. And that was the first time I remember hearing. The first time I was played was at in St. Louis at the College Station there, WSIE maybe, at Edwardsville. And I was like glued. They said they were going to play it sometime that night. So I was glued with my little portable recorder to hear it. And it come on. And it was just like, that movie with Tom Hanks produced, with that thing you do. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
And they're running all over, screaming. And it was kind of like that, but I was just doing it in my house. And but it is great, you know. It's
just, there's just something about that that's just super special, and I think just the complete the access. I think that complete availability of so much, it's almost overwhelming. That it's just that specialness is kind of not exactly there like it used to be. But I guess that the trade is that you get probably more listeners or more people downloading, that kind of. I'm still back at your I'm still back at the red, white, and blue pants. and the American flag. Like when you said that story, I'm going, did he use a paintbrush for those pants? I hope you find the pictures of that. Do you have pictures of them?
Well, there's this girl that went to school with us, and she took pictures of us, and I still know her name. So if Angela Youngblood, if you hear this, please send me those pictures. But I'm going to contact the school. I have never done that, to see if maybe they have some in the yearbook or something possible. I'd really like to have that. You know, back then, you know, no cell phones and not much of cameras, even, really, too many people
film and all of that. So it was literally, tangible photos.
Yeah.
But that was your first band. What is the last band that you had played in, and what are you doing now?
Well, the last band was, I was going to say Bloodline, but I put together another band right before COVID, which was called The Power of Three. And it was my nephew, Jess, my youngest brother's son, excellent drummer, really, really excellent drummer. He played with a band called Air Cobra for a while, and they were playing the Cowboy Monkey and Canopy Club, real heavy band. And but he's a all-around drummer, jazz, funk, anything. But anyway, he was a drummer, and my son Dylan is normally a guitar player, but he was on bass for that band. And so since we are a trio, power trio, we're called the Power of Three, I said, well, let's do 3 songs of each artist. So we was doing 3 Steppenwolf, 3 Deep Purple, 3 Stones, 3 Alice Coopers, 3. We were trying to stay in that 60, did some Cream, 68 through early 70s style rock, but then we did originals too. We were thrown in, but we had gigs booked, like we were booked at Pippa's, we were booked in Decatur, Bloomington, Crawfordsville, Danville. We had probably about 20 things booked, and it was right before COVID, but I had got sick with COVID, but they didn't know it was COVID at the time. And I was down for almost 3 weeks. So I had to, we only got to play 2 of those gigs, excuse me, and I had to cancel a couple. But then, boom, across the board, everybody, you know, they were closing all the bars. So that was the last band. And we were doing some recording actually too, that I still have. We haven't finished.
Oh,
But
wow.
before that, the last one that we were playing a lot was Ben Jenkins' Bloodline, which had my brother Don on drums. I think I said that, Todd on bass, and Dylan on drums. And we were playing, we played Champaign, Danville, Crawfordsville. We were playing up in Chicago and some other gigs too. And actually, I ran into Mel Hoax at the Blues Fest. You know, Mel.
Yeah.
And he filled in on a couple gigs, but he filled in on we played up at Shaw's on Hubbard in Chicago, and he filled in on drums with us up there. And it's really nice playing Chicago, but some of the clubs up there, when you're playing downtown, you have to pull on the street. You have to throw your equipment out onto the sidewalk, and then you have to go park somewhere, find a parking spot in a garage or something, and then get all that loaded up. But that was a fun band, but I was kind of disappointed in the band. We still would have been playing longer, and I haven't said this to anybody, so if he hears this, don't be mad at me, Todd, but the reason when I'm done with this band is my goals was to tour and play around. Well, Todd he was committed to us, but he was also a gun for hire. He really great bass player, spreads himself thin too, which we all do. But he plays with the Champaign Symphony Orchestra. He plays with Danville Symphony, and he teaches in Terre Haute and plays at that symphony. Besides playing gigs with whoever you can think of. But we had some gigs booked in St. Louis on Broadway, one of the hottest clubs there, and Soulard. And then I was booked in Buddy Guy's. And it took me almost a year to get into Buddy Guy's. You can't, they don't just book anybody. I have the tenacity and persistence without hopefully being irritating to them. But they had an opening. Great, we got in. It was all on his calendar and everything. And then all of a sudden he calls me, he says, man, I can't do those dates. I took a gig with a country band or something for a week to do some fairs. And I had to call and cancel them. And, you know, I didn't even try to get back in. I did try to get at St. Louis. I tried to tell the guy, well, my brother Alex Jenkins and the Bombers, they have a CD out. They gig all the time. They're a really good band. They could take the place. He goes, well, I canceled the band to put your band in here. So, but I still love Todd, and we talk and, you know.
Yeah, but that had been so incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, it is. That's a story with a lot of bands, actually. Like, I hate to say this too, but if we're on the subject, since I brought it up, the Delta Kings, I was in the first Delta Kings, and it was Terry Hawkins, Ron Sullivan, and I can't remember the other guy's name that played bass, but they were actually the Rhythm Rangers at first. And I was playing in Tons of Fun, the original Tons of Fun band. And the first Tons of Fun band was my older brother Wayne played with them. It was Steve Shaw is the only original guy, the trumpet player, which he's carried that a long time, man, and went through good musicians. But so then Wayne got out of that or something, and then I took over and I played with them a couple of years. And then I was also playing 2 clubs over here, one in Belgium on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I play anywhere from midnight until 5 o'clock in the morning. It was like wild. That was back in the day. And then I was playing on Wednesdays and Sundays at the Black Bear. And then I was playing with the Delta Kings and then doing Gun for Hire. Anyway, so before it was the Delta Kings, I go over and jam with them, and they liked me, and I liked them. But the guy that was playing bass, I can't remember. We only practiced twice, and then he just stopped coming. He didn't want to do it anymore. And then Ron got a hold of a guy named Randy Centilla out of Chicago. And then that was the first Delta Kings, and we kind of went back and forth, and him and I came up with the name, and we started playing. Great guys. But the thing I loved about that band is we were pretty much all on the same page. We did almost all originals, and we were doing a lot of openings for Anson Thunderberg, Webb Wilder, Reverend Horton Heat,
Wow.
Cheap Trick, and we were playing the Monkey, the Monkey, the Blind Pig, over here, different places, and so it was all going great. And I was kind of a butthole at times. I was starting to drink a lot, but I remember one time, I probably need to get this story in. It's not funny now. Ron laughed about it later, but we were playing this one particular night with, because I kind of promoted this, so I feel I need to tell it. We were opening for Reverend Horton Heat, I think, for the second time. And I think this time it was at the Blind Pig. Great night, and we had a good review in the Daily Illini after that. And it was, so we were all kind of celebrating, partying with them, band and everything. Then we go over to Ron's studio, which he had it was Prime Light photography studio. If you remember that, it was university there. So we're all in there, partying, the whole band and all of our girlfriends and everything, hanging out. And I was just trashed. And so I ended up in Ron's car, passed out. And it was the night before Thanksgiving. So I wake up at like 6 a.m. It could be cold. That's cold. And I just had a t-shirt on. I was freezing to death. And this was before payphones. And it's right there, across from WEF and everything, where the train station is and all that. So there's no payphones anywhere. I'm freezing to death. No one's around. Why did they leave me? Where's my girlfriend? What's going on? So I didn't know what to do. So I proceeded to go over to a side door, and I put my foot through it to a little panel. And then I was a lot skinnier then. So I shimmied up in there, and in there, his studio was there, and it was all these glass doors with kind of wire in them or something. And there was 3 or 4 other businesses in there, and I'm pounding on the door, Ron, or whoever, who's in there? Let me in here. No one's opening the door. So I took a fire extinguisher off the wall.
My God.
And bam, I was bashing it till a hole came into the glass door. It wasn't funny then, but so I climbed in there, and then I wasn't in there that long before, who comes along as the police come. What are you doing in there, sir? And so they come in there, and this is a kicker to the story. Ron's wife had a friend that came to the party, and he had a little lounge area that we was hanging in. And as we go in there with the 2 cops, there's a man laying on the couch in full makeup, lipstick and rouge and all this stuff. So I'm sure the cops are thinking, they had a lover's quarrel or something like that happened. But when he passed out, I guess, everybody was face. So I ended up, I had to spend the night in Champaign jail, Urbana, for the day or 2 days, because it was Thanksgiving. Then my 2 brothers came and bailed me out. But I ended up, luckily, we're still friends, and I had to pay restitution to Ron through the court systems, and I did some public service work, and the rest is just part of rock and roll.
Yeah.
Felt really bad. But anyway, those guys so great to me, and just good friends. I still am. I just seen Terry, my brother, and I went to the drum show in Chicago, and we hung out there with him for a while. But anyway, getting back to that band, the reason I should have handled a little different, but I can't remember if we opened for Cheap Trick at the Hitchin Post. Ron said we did. I thought it was at Mabel's because I got
And
pictures and we were hanging out with them there. We were like drinking after it closed with Paul and Amy there. And it was Tom Peterson, Bunny Carlos, and Robin Zander, but Rick Nielsen just took off. But anyway, so I thought it was there, but he said it wasn't. But anyway, Ian Goldberg Production put us on a show with them, and we opened up for them in Peoria, Illinois, at the arena there. Great time. And then I think it was like the next day, Ron tells me, well, we just got offered a 6-week tour for a 45-minute set for $1,000 a set, which I didn't even care about the money, but I thought, well, this is great. We're going to be in front of people. We could finally do a proper vinyl or CD release.
how long ago was
I'm sorry?
How long ago was this?
That was in about 93, maybe.
$1,000 for 45 minutes, pretty darn good then.
Yeah. So we would, but I mean, that wasn't even, I mean, oh, sure, it was good because we were actually started in Pogo. Come to think of it, I was doing a separate session in there, but okay.
Okay. All right. So just to let everybody know, we had a interruption in the internet. So we're going to come back to this story and finish it. We were talking about the Delta Kings and opening for Cheap Trick and being offered $1,000 for 45 minutes. But doing some touring, this would mean that you would have to do. So then
right,
what?
Yeah, we would have had to do. It was a 6-week mini tour, and Ron on bass couldn't do it, but Terry really didn't say if he could do it or not at the time. But you know, it was coming up so quick, we couldn't just get another bass player to open at a concert in front of thousands of people. So I just ended up, I was really disappointed. I ended up just killing anybody, and I could have, you know, did it different. I wish I would have just told him I don't think I could stay anymore. But we're still friends. I still talk to him all the time. I talked to Ron this afternoon, I think, online. So that happened, but that was kind of
All right. So then because what you wanted to do was you wanted to do the touring. You wanted to do, you know, take your music like out there and that didn't happen. Not with them.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah,
so,
I was open to tour, you know.
Yeah. So did you after that experience and after that realizing, well, these guys don't want to do that, but I do. Did you do anything with that? Like, because you wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I did. I moved back to Nashville for the second time. Basically didn't even tell him I was leaving the band. I just, after 2 days probably of him telling me that, I was gone and back down there. The first time I was in Nashville, because I mean, that's been my whole career goal. I've been a musician my whole life. I've worked jobs and actually owned a lot of businesses, but it's the businesses I owned. The only reason I owned them was to support my music. You know, I thought, well, but in retrospect, I shouldn't have done that because there's, like, I own 2 restaurants. You're putting a lot of time in that. And I owned a newspaper for a while, free press paper, and I owned a retail music store. And I actually owned a head shop. It was my first business over here years ago. But, you know, and it was all to do with the music. But I should have probably just been a pizza delivery guy or something where I could have a flexible schedule or something like that, you know. But anyway, so I was down in Nashville before I got with the Delta Kings, you know, before I even knew those guys. I had went down there. I left from St. Louis to go there, and I had sold. I kept 2 guitars, a Fender twin amp, one suitcase, and a small box of like whatever. And I gave away things, sold things, and I bought a one-way Greyhound bus ticket to Nashville. And I just stuck my stuff into big lockers at the bus station and wandered around and with one guitar. And then I ended up finding a hotel room for a couple of days and ended up getting like an efficiency right downtown there for a while. And then I moved over to what they call the Rock Block, which is, if there's a famous place called the Exit Inn. It's like a Mabel's or the Red Lion for the Nashville area. And then there's across the street was called the End, and they had like a lot of punk and stuff in there. But I lived right up on in these old brownstones right in the third. So I was always able to hang out and stuff there, and which I was doing. But I was there for 6 months, and I played. I got a chance to get into Bluebird Cafe, so I played there once at a time. Couple other places, and it's all unplugged. And when you're doing that, it's basically you're sitting there, and almost a foot away from you is where the tables begins. They're not dancing; they're there to listen to every single word, every single stroke of the guitar you play, looking right in your face, listening. Their T-shirts, it's a Bluebird. Their logo has the lips with the finger going shh, and it says shh. They don't allow any talking in there. I mean, you could whisper. But man, when I did that, because I was so used to writing a lot of my songs electrified and playing them with a band, and I was so intimidated, and I had so much experience, but I was so I thought I can't do this, and I was there 6 months. And I moved back up here. I think I moved to Champaign. Yeah, I moved. I lived on the corner of First and Green Street in these apartments right across from Garcia's, and I lived there for a year. That's another story too.
Yeah.
I was probably 30 years old at the time. Everyone else was college students at 32 maybe. And you can look out your balcony, and all the students' balconies, almost every other one had a keg of beer sitting out there. But anyway, that's when I ended up hooking up with tons of fun and doing these other local gigs and the Greyhounds. And then I ended up going back to the story with Delta Kings. That's when I went back again, and I stayed. I was down there probably a total of 12 years. And but I did, I played back to the Bird, did great, got asked back. Barbara Cloyd, who still does the writers there, and I was doing rounds at Douglas Corner and the Broken Spoke. And actually, we were down there one time, and my brother Wayne had moved down. I was working at Gibson Guitar. I worked there for about 8 years. And then Wayne worked at the Opryland Hotel for a little bit. Oh, and then he got hooked up there. I got him hooked up at Gibson. But where was I going with this? Oh, we were playing a writer's round one time at a place called the Broken Spoke Cafe. And in walks, there's a band from here called Bolero. And they couldn't believe it. All the places, we know them from Danville, and they walk into this writers thing, and here's me and my brother up there playing. They couldn't believe it. But that happened another time too. I was actually playing in a band I had called the Sinners, which we did a live CD at a place called Third and Lindsley, which is a real hot club there, or Bourbon Street Blues, Third and Lindsley. And there was another time we were playing, it's in the Printer's Alley there, and there was 3 guys that happened to be going through Nashville, stopped in, and I'm taking a break, and they come over. What are you doing? I'm playing. But it's such a small world, such a small world when that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I down there, I was doing studio work. I did the Flathead 6 CD. After working at Gibson, you get to meet a lot of people. So I started working on the Flathead 6 CD. I had 8 songs complete, and I ended up meeting Jeff Cease, the original guitar player for the Black Crowes. He was on the Shake Your Moneymaker album. And yeah, he was.
Hang on, you're cutting.
Black I won't get into why he quit, but so he played on, I think, 4 cuts, and he played on a couple other cuts with me. And then I had the drummer, Danny Darling, a good friend of mine. He's back in around the Austin area again, but he played with Leon Russell for years. And he played with the Mavericks guitar player, Nick Kane, for a while. But he's good guy, good. And another sidebar story on him is his son is married to Nick Lowe's and Carlene Carter's daughter, Tiffany Lowe, which is an excellent artist. So he had a couple opportunities. He got to go over to Johnny Cash's house for Thanksgiving a couple times, told me all about it. But it's so funny how you're down there and you just these people that I idolize and stuff, they're just regular people, just like all of us. I mean, I was at that Exit In one time, and I'm standing there watching. It was the Marty Stewart had that show. I can't remember what it was called. It was a live show, and he'd have guests on, and he was recording at Exit In. And then up, standing next to me, walking right up to me and standing there is Hank 3. And I went, what the heck? So we stood there talking for 45 minutes. Hank 3, and then on the other side of me, probably 15 minutes after Hank 3's there, is oh my God, I love her too. Cinda Williams.
Oh, okay.
Is standing there. So, and at that time, I wasn't intimidated. Environment, you're drinking beers, you get relaxed, and it was cool. And his hair is unmistakable, which is Marty Stewart. You know who he is, right? He's standing in front of me with his bigger than Rod Stewart hair going on, and we talked for like 10 minutes. Really nice guy there. But speaking of Tower Records too, and going back to like hearing your music on the radio and all that stuff, that was a big point for me too, because we had the Flathead 6 CD was distributed to Tower Records franchises, and I happened to go in at Tower Records that day, and before I ran into him, they had the listening stations. Well, I glanced at one, lo and behold, here's the Flathead 6 CD at one of the listening stations. I went, wow, they put our CD out there on the listening station. So, I put the headphones on, listened a couple of minutes, but that was a great moment too. That was really fun to do that. But yeah. It was.
That would, I mean, that's exciting. That right there.
Yeah.
Did you, so what is it that you want to do now? Now that you're back in Champaign, what is it?
There's even getting back with recording and stuff like that. There's nothing like recording all that, really nothing like it. But I really love to play live. That's where my heart's at, and really the CDs and the records and stuff are just something to people to hear, to want to go out and see you live is what I think. And so I was kind of in the process of jamming with my brother Don again on drums, and I maybe talking to him about putting together the Bloodline again and gigging, but that's not going to go far because he doesn't want to travel far. But just for fun, I think I might do that. That's kind of what I'm looking to do is put something together again, at least just get out and, like, I shook the dust off a little bit out there at the Blues Fest with the Painkillers, and it gets your juices flowing again. So I actually have a bunch of recordings I've been recording. So I'm kind of wanting to put together a band, and I have a couple other projects, which maybe I could pitch it on here now. I didn't want to, but I'm looking at possibly doing a compilation of East Central Illinois bands on I have a label called 99 Man that my other CDs was released on. And I wanted to see if these bands will get a hold of me and send me what they got, and maybe do between 2 and 3 songs each not just any kind of music, rock, blues, country, just original bands from Champaign, Danville, Bloomington, just the East Central Illinois area. And I think what I want to do is do a vinyl album, and it might have to be double because vinyl you can't they don't have as long as like a CD does. But nowadays, like you said earlier, everybody's streaming and downloading, but a lot of people really love to buy the vinyl again. That's kind of back out. So I thought maybe do a vinyl album and then a download card or something like that, or a link to do that. Yeah. So I'm looking at that maybe.
That would be.
Yeah.
I think that would be incredible. I think you'd probably get interest. A lot of people that would be interested in being a part of that.
Yeah. The thing with that is you have the power of all the bands too. Like everyone on there is going to be, whenever they're playing, they're going to be selling, it's going to be in the local record stores, obviously, and wherever else. I have some distributors out of town too that I still use. And I got people all over the world that we could do. They're always sending me stuff. They want CDs or records and stuff, different radio stations in Italy or Greece or somewhere. But as far as in this area, in the East Central Illinois and beyond, if you have, say, 10 bands doing 2 songs each, 3 songs each, whenever they're playing out, they're gonna help sell your music. And then when I'm playing out, I'm gonna help sell their music. This band's gonna help sell their music. So it should be a good little promotion thing. That's in the can, something I'm thinking about. So I'm seriously thinking about it. So yeah, maybe come up with some kind of name from East Central Illinois, something besides homegrown. That's been used quite a bit. So some word that says the meaning, same meaning. Maybe you can come up with something.
Yeah, and
I know a lot of people, and I had a lot of opportunities. Like I think I sent you a thing about some of my regrets. If I had time, I'll have to throw those in. I know you'll probably edit, but there's opportunities, and to musicians out there listening, if you get an opportunity, if it comes along, you need to just take it. Don't think about it. If you think, well, I'm not going to do that because really I wasn't here to do that, or whatever reason, because God puts us in the path of opportunities. He wants us to do something, and there's opportunities there, but there's a few I missed. And one of them was in Nashville. I was going to a church down there that was unbelievable. I never went to church before at all, and I kept getting invited. I finally went, and it really changed a lot of my life. But the associate pastor was a sax player from the Miami Sound Machine, and the guy, there's all kinds of, the music not department, what do they call it? The music, I don't know, what do they call it? They have different, like for marrieds and singles, but they had a music group or whatever, and there's like 450 members just in that. But I was with one of my guys in my Bible lesson thing was he was the president of the A&R from MCA Records. So he one day, and he said, why don't you come up and bring your material, because he knew I wrote, and why don't you come up and just play for me and show me some of your songs. And I didn't do it. I said, no, I'm not going to do that, because I came here to the church to learn about God. So I don't, but he's trying to tell me, well, God put this opportunity in your path. No, I don't want, so I didn't do that. But that was a big regret. I could have maybe clicked with something like that. Another time I kind of was going back and forth to Danville a lot, getting in a little bit of trouble at Gibson. But the studio called me, Little Hollywood Studio, where I recorded the Flathead 6 CD. The owner called me and said, hey, Toto just called me up, the keyboardist from Toto, and they wanted to find a harmonica player for one of the songs on their whatever next album at the time. And he called me, he said, because, you know, he thought of me. And I said, wow, that's great. And I could not get off work. And I could have either just quit the Gibson or took a chance of getting fired and did the session. So that was kind of a regret. And then two real quick funny regrets. I got to know, I'm still friends with him. Buddy Jennings is Waylon Jennings' son, one of his older sons. And I met him at Gibson, believe it or not. He worked at Gibson Guitar in the pickup division. So he invites me to go golfing with him and his dad, Waylon Jennings. And I said, are you kidding me? I don't even know how to play golf in the first place. And I'm not going to sit there with Waylon Jennings and be an idiot. He goes, oh, and he was laughing, saying, and he's so down to earth. All we do is ride around in the cart and drink beer. And I said, no. So I didn't do that. And then what's he do? Probably a month later, he invites me to go to his dad's house and said, well, come on over there and let's drive the General Lee around, you know, from the Dukes of Hazzard, because Waylon's got one of the cars.
Right.
And he said, we'll just drive around the fields and driveway and stuff. And I said, yeah, I'll drive the General Lee and probably ram it in the side of your dad's house. So I didn't do that like an idiot. And then the third thing, unfortunately,
oh my God,
was at the Ryman Auditorium, and it turned out to be his last show before he passed away. So he invited me, you know, to go hang backstage and hang with him and everything. And I could not get out of something. I just could not. I mean, I would have tried whatever I could, but he did bring me some picks off his. Waylon mainly plays with his fingers, but he does use picks on a couple songs, and he has them on his stand. So he picked a couple that he used and brought them to me. But yeah, there's way more regrets, but those were a couple funny ones.
I am telling you that I'm really speechless, because I cannot believe that you missed all three of those.
Yeah. All three of them, three opportunities.
Yeah.
But I was I'm usually not too, I mean, I've been around, like I've in Nashville, I watched one of my favorite bands, The Replacements, and I always hang around after the show, and I'm sitting up there drinking a Heineken, and here comes Paul Westerberg and Tommy Stinson. And I sat there at the bar with them for 45 minutes, just talking and drinking. And, you know, like I said, I drank with the guys from Cheap Trick and hung around, and it doesn't really intimidate me too much, because everyone's real people, right. But for some reason, Waylon Jennings, I couldn't do it. I don't know why. It was just, maybe it was at the time there, maybe because I was so hungry to get songs recorded and stuff. I thought I might, you know, put my foot in my mouth and do something stupid, and then he'll say, you know, get the hell out of my golf cart or something.
Yeah, you don't. The last thing you want is Waylon Jennings tell you get the hell out of his golf cart.
Yeah. Well, I did have someone tell me something similar once, and it was the Jenkins brothers. We did some shows opening for Tommy James and Shondell, Peter Tork from the Monkees, and we opened for Chubby Checker, and we were doing a show with him over here at the Lamplighter, actually, back in the day. And it was just jam-packed, and he had a killer rock band from New York, these musicians. Well, I got to talking with them, and they invited me on the bus. So I'm on Chubby Checker's bus, and, you know, we're hanging out, and they were going to partake in some of that stuff you roll up or whatever. But they said, we can't do it because Chubby charges us $50 if we get high or drunk before a show or after. And so I'm sitting there on the bus and everything, and then here comes Chubby out of his bedroom in the back in a robe, and got to talking to him for a minute. He goes, you know, this was way back in the day before anything was much open late. He goes, where can you get some hamburgers at? And there was a place called the Phoenix. I said, man, there's a place called the Phoenix you can get hamburgers at. And he wanted me to get him a sack of hamburgers. And I said, sure, I'll get a sack of hamburgers for you. And I'm standing there waiting for him to give me the money. and he's not giving me the money, and I'm kind of like gesturing with my hand. And he said, "Get the hell off my bus." So Chubby Checker threw me off his bus because I wouldn't get him some hamburgers, pay for them.
Like, I would have done the same thing. Like, I can't afford to go and get a sack of ham.
Right. A sack of hamburgers for you and your whole bus. And Chubby, I don't know how many hamburgers you're going to eat alone, but yes. Yeah, it's and every musician's got stories, and it doesn't make us better than anybody else or more important. I just have funny stories, and I like to share them. And and that's why I say to musicians, if you're listening, don't pass up an opportunity. There's a door that opens, even a crack, kick it open, man. Just go through it, and there's an opportunity that's been put there for a reason. And but sometimes now maybe it's circling around because maybe there's something else for me. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's true. And I think on that we'll end, because I love that advice that you just gave, and that's probably going to resonate a lot with a lot of musicians. And but I did want to say too, like, listen, he gave me a list of everybody that he has played with. Ben Jenkins has, and of course, the beginning of the list is mostly Jenkins. Wayne, Don, Tim, Jesse, Dylan, Brian, Jess, Monty, Cleo. But he's given me this list. So you have really, I mean, Tim Donaldson, John Coons, you played with probably pretty much everybody.
Yeah. Some of the guys from Plush. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but you remember all of this, which is so spectacular. I think you probably should write a book, maybe.
Well, that's in the works too.
Yeah, you should. That would probably be pretty interesting. You should probably consider that. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. Aside from the internet disconnecting on us a couple of times and all that, but I think we've pretty good. Fantastic stories, great advice, and I'll probably. I mean, the fact. Okay, first of all, the story about your, the band and the American telling you no, I love that. and then the missing the 3 opportunities to hang out with Waylon Jennings.
Yeah.
That literally blows my mind, because he is like one of my all-time.
Yeah.
There'll never be another.
No.
Ever.
No.
But it's been, I've really enjoyed this podcast, and thank you so much for being on with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything CU bands and fans do, and yourself as a talented photographer. Everything you do there is really good for the music community in East Central Illinois.
Yeah.
So thank you too.
We appreciate that. I know Zach does a lot of hard work to get that event list and everything off. So I always want to give him lots of kudos, and you make sure that you send your music to WKIO. Send it to those.
I'll do that.
And then also I will gather up links of where your music is, and it will be attached to this podcast to let everybody know, so that you can go and find that music really easily and download it and get to know Ben. He's somebody to know, definitely. And is your Facebook page the only Facebook you have, or do you have a music Facebook page?
I have 4 of them, actually. I have one under Benny Jenkins Bloodline. Just go to Facebook, and there's one for Flathead 6. And there's one for, I think, Jenkins Brothers Electrified Blues Duo. And then I think you have my email address.
Yes.
It's if anybody is interested in being a part of a compilation album or CD, one or the other, bands in East Central Illinois with original music, just go ahead and send me an email.
Awesome. We'll attach the email to this podcast as well. But otherwise, another way to connect with you is under just Ben Jenkins.
Yeah.
BenJenkins, and you don't mind.
Yeah.
You don't mind.
And if you get in and just Google me, I'll come up all kinds of, because I had 2 websites, and one of them got stolen. So I'm working on, for the record company label, I'm trying to get that worked out for 99 Man Records. But just look me up on there, and you'll find me some way.
Okay. It's been fascinating. I mean, truly, you've got some stories, and so I'd love to have you back. We'd like to have you back, especially I think after whatever your next projects are that you're going to go after.
Okay.
Yeah, have you back and just do a second one. So
Sounds great. Yeah. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Doctor wanted new love. He said, boy, what you doing back here? You look white as a dove. I said, man, that stuff you gave me, think you took me for a ride. Sometimes I feel like Jekyll, but mostly feel like Hyde. I got a bad spell. A bad spell, I got a bad spell, a bad spell, a bad spell. He took me into his parlor to a wingback chair. I got a little dizzy, I smell blood in the air. Goat's head soup, I drank muddy water's tea. Now you're a star, baby, so just let it bleed. Come on, let it bleed. I got a bad spell, a bad spell, a bad spell. I got a bad spell, a bad spell, a bad spell. Pay my dues.